When I was filming on the wilderness of Ranach Moor, I stayed in the youth hostel there. And folk asked me about my work, and when I told them straight away, they leapt to this conclusion: you'll be about doom and gloom then. Nah. The season of creation is not a marginal or concessionary ghetto of one or two references to creation in those thousands of pages of scripture. It's a gift to help us experience something like the intoxicating and very biblical joy of plunder, of getting away with it, as with delight we raid that treasure of the wide creative spectrum of Christian heritage, not as robbers or pirates, but as creation's kin, set free by truth to immerse ourselves in courage and encouragement. To let these things into our lives and make sure that our footprint on the planet is as misery negative and joy positive as can be. Consider that this might be what faith is for: shamelessly to infect the world with joy, and conspicuously to be known to be Christians by our love for our kin. And if you don't get there on your own, don't pile on the gloom, because what else is the rest of the church for? But to pray and heal and hold our hands. And the church up the road too, of whatever brand, whatever tradition. Together we get there, even as we respect and acknowledge the pains and sorrows that block our individual horizons. Indeed, isn't it time that they knew we are Christian by our active and costly and exuberant and realistic love for the wonder and mystery and terror and beauty of the creation whom we also are? And whatever else it is that our churches offer in response to the terrible truths of the crises of nature and climate, even as those manifold elephants, no longer content to be in a corner of the room, but charging now so destructively into our lives and economies with the devastation of hurricanes, droughts, rising acidic seas, societal breakdown, even then, never be hesitant or nervous or ashamed of what will build you up in your discipleship of the Christ who came, that their joy might be in us and our joy might be full. In the crisis of nature and climate, it is stupidity, not strength, to forgo what delights you, which God places in your way. Like the waters of baptism that soak into us, like the water of life, which makes up most of what we are. Our responsive, respectful, interactive and interdependent relationship with the rest of creation need not defile us. But how can that work both ways? How, as the offspring of Abraham, can we be a blessing to all those families of the earth? Not by starving ourselves of wonder and beauty, of the health bonus of even just a bit of green stuff, of blue sky, a puffin, a puss moth, creation's kin seen and most of the time unseen. No one is so strong, so worthy, so apparently faithful and mature that they don't need and benefit from a smile or even a tear of joy. Beauty is not expendable. It is healthy. It's how we're made, and we're not at all diminished or, for that matter, defiled by admitting that what we share according to their kind with the flesh and blood of creation's kin around us. So why is it we insist it's still insulting to acknowledge our similarities, our solidarity with creatures other than human, in the global north at least, and outside, of course, some of the spiritual wisdom of indigenous cultures, including Christian ones? In the Song of Songs, my beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. And the more I see of the stories of defining saints like Mungo, Columba, Francis, Cuthbert and Bridget, who gave their names and blessing to our churches and even our cities, the more it becomes apparent that their legendary interactions with fellow creatures, as Jesus was in the wilderness with the wildlife, are not just thrown in as light relief, but cherished as a profound authentication of God at work in the relationships which make up their lives. They are blessed, not defiled by their kindness to creatures. So have the courage, or call it foolishness, like the foolishness of a lover, to see happiness in a tree, as well as in the birds who make their habitat therein. Along with Methodist and Calvinist, the term Christian may first have been something of an insult. But blessed are you when they call you tree hugger, for Christ's sake. Those of you who've shared your life, even with a dog or cat, will know what it is to let their wagging tails or their purring work their magic on us. It by no means diminishes us. That human joy can overflow the other way. Celebrate that. Don't be shy. Let it be seen in the care and welcome that you give. Those of you who have church grounds and gardens, or even so much as a window box or a plant pot at home, you're welcome to something living, something fragile, someone with whom you share that gift of life. Even help the spider out of the bath. In preparing scripture for worship over the last 3 decades, I've so often stumbled over the tendency towards safe and genteel translation. And it's not just the Bible that suffers from that. In Schiller's poem, which Beethoven so wonderfully set to music in the choral symphony, thus this line, "Wollust ward dem Wurm gegeben." And I've seen that grudgingly acknowledging that worms may just about inspire to feel contentment. But that's playing safe with the poetry rather than risking the scandalous possibility that something we might despise and look down on or are content to eradicate could be ennobled with ecstatic desire, or indeed after their fashion with lust for life. A gift which is given even to the most lowly creatures as well as to us. A gift which might well be evoked by the Song of Songs, but what do you do with it? Do you use that undoubted energy to power and motivate love and healing, the enrichment of life, the transformation of perspective, which Christ so frequently called for? Or do you defile it with abuse, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, folly, or misplaced shame? That this is a part of how God made us. Body and soul and spirit, in the entirety in which the Word made flesh is like us in all things. Now, in the work I do, I don't cherry-pick lectionary readings, but here is something deeply appropriate in beginning a season of creation with this ancient yet still sensual song of love utterly immersed in the cycles of creation, the habitat of wildlife, the tasks and the annual rewards of farming and all their sights and sounds and smells. Scripture which speaks to our imaginations and experiences as an intoxicating sensory overload, as a reminder of life's own self, as a resource for hope and resilience, as well as the permission to be part of that joy, with the blessing of Scripture motivating us to care for and protect whom we've dared to be in love with. So wherever and however you meet together as church, whenever we feel overwhelmed at the challenges and prospect of life in a world which is already irrevocably damaged, then by the grace of God, bring beauty to mind and sight and smell and all our senses. Even if it's just drawing attention to the flowers on the table, but make sure when you do so that the beauty is real. Fragile flowers that last but a day or so, not those toxic wreaths of plastic that defigure so many places that folk now gather in our cities. Despite many reservations over the centuries, our ancestors successfully defended the rightful place of the Song of Songs in Scripture. Weather, birds, animals, trees, all expressing the fruitfulness that God commanded. Beautiful, mysterious, even scary. Don't forget scary. Our friends in the Philippines won't, as the hurricane season builds up once more, exacerbated by changes to the climate caused by human activity. The pain of the world expressed through nature, but definitely not natural. The singer of this song, the woman who sings, is not just making of their non-human neighbours in creation a means to an end, not even just to the pious end of the love of God. The love and the worship and the experience of beauty is with, rather than just through. How would it feel to say to your lover or close friend, I love you only as you are a means of loving God? Those lovers will themselves love God better for having loved one another, and love one another better for their connection with the burgeoning natural world around them. And this can be faithfully affirmed even in traditions which might have been constrained by a reputation like that of Scots Calvinism, which suggests otherwise. The season of creation gives us permission to dig up the treasures in the whole field of Scripture. It was written by and for dwellers of God's unified creation of sky, soil, heaven and earth, a creation as a whole, which is marred and damaged by injustice. I've asked folk who write for Season of Creation, above all, to think for themselves rather than reach for the bookshelves. But none other than Jean Calvin wrote, and gushingly, that it is that it is evident that all creatures, from those in the firmament to those which are in the centre of the earth, that they are able to act as witnesses and messengers of God's glory to all people, to draw them to seek God, and having found him, to meditate upon him and render God the homage befitting God's dignity. It's for love, not statistics, that we change our minds and our ways. Never be afraid as a follower of Christ to follow his advice to look at the birds or fall in love with them. Never be embarrassed about the cuddly stuff. Not one of us is strong enough to face today's challenges without some beauty, some comfort, some delight. If you're shaping worship, make sure it feeds. And as for the season, let it be a delight.